an Unspoiled Network podcast.
Spoil Me, covering One Piece, episodes 582 through 584. Startling! The secret of the island is finally revealed. Save the children. The Straw Hats start to fight. And a swordplay showdown. Brook versus the mysterious torso samurai. In these episodes, you know, it's funny because it says the secret of the island is finally revealed, but I feel like there's still a lot of secrets of this island that haven't been revealed. There's just, this is a particularly puzzling situation that we are in. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Florian for commissioning this episode. So, yeah, you guys, there's just so many secrets, so many weird things going on this island that saying, like, the secret is finally revealed, it feels like it's overstating the amount of information that we get. Because we still don't really know what's going on here. You know, like there's not actually a, here's what happened to cause the island to be this way. We know that, like, whatever incident it was that happened a few years ago, it has created this, like, half cold, half hot situation, climate, I guess. But we don't yet know exactly what it was that went wrong, how this all happened, like the story behind that. Which for me, if you're saying something like the secret of the island is finally revealed, that's what I'm expecting to find out about, you know? There was like, and we know that it was a failed experiment, but it's not really like, when I say there's no explanation, what I mean is, the fact that we have it split into these two sections, I don't feel like there's a good reason for it. A failed experiment that has, like, you know, this sort of gas that is unhealthy to be in, that's one thing. But for it to be divided straight down the middle, that is sort of, this does not feel adequate for me. However, it's fine. I feel like the explanation is probably more like it really doesn't matter probably in the end. Maybe it does. And Seraphim is in the chat. Seraphim is leaving some comments. I'm going to read them. Well, one of the secrets in this case, what's up with the half ice, half fire thing. The story behind the extreme climates is that this is where Aokiji and Akihino fought their duel. Wait a minute. Oh my God, you guys, how did I miss that? I'm starting to get really concerned about myself because I paid attention for these episodes, and maybe I was just so distracted by some of the other things that is happening. I didn't even oh, but wait, no, I remember this now. Because, like, when some of Smoker's men reach the island and are on it, they're like, it feels really weird. It feels like we are standing between the two of them fighting. That's right. Okay. I'm remembering now. Thank you, Seraphim. So forgive me, anybody listening who's, like, infuriated at my opening of saying this wasn't explained. Please forgive my broken brain. I don't have any better excuse than that. 'Cause I promise I watched these. I'm not like just, can you imagine if I just came on here and straight up, like, pretended? Oh man, that would be an interesting experiment. But anyway, okay. So let's get into this whole, like, the one thing that I am still super, super curious about is this, bird woman. And there's something that I had considered in the watching of the last episodes that I didn't bring up because I hadn't really wanted to think about it as a possibility, if I'm being honest. You guys know, like I said last time, how uncomfortable medical experimentation makes me. And it's just like a particular, um, what's the word I want? Like, it's a particularly creepy and horrifying to me concept, and the type of person that would be willing to put other people through that kind of pain is really more terrifying to me than any monster. But the fact that we have a woman who is part bird and a man who is a centaur has me kind of wondering if we're doing some sort of Island of Dr. Moreau thing going on here. And I haven't read The Island of Dr. Moreau. I know, in broad strokes what it is about. I, not too long ago, listened to a podcast where they describe that, like, in pretty good detail, like the plot points of it. And it just sort of reinforced for me that that is not a book I want to read because it touches so heavily on the exact thing that I find genuinely really frightening. And this is sort of feeling like maybe what is happening here. I'm not entirely clear on how, like, the children and all of their different sizes would tie into that. Maybe the way that the woman and the centaur turned out is just one type of experiment amongst a bunch of other experiments. Maybe it's not just explicitly only about making people meld with animals somehow. But I just wanted to mention that that was something that I had thought of in the last grouping of episodes and didn't remember to bring up because I was a little bit distracted by the fact that Luffy is, like, somehow kind of a centaur, but, like, not really. All right, so when we open this episode, all of our friends, we kind of recount what's going on with this samurai whose head has been reassembled incorrectly. I do want to take a moment and kind of give some credit for the fact that having his body cut into a bunch of pieces, even Nami says this is so weird, it's like buggy. But also the fact that they have decided to do this, not just is it like buggy, but we have taken it up a notch where he gets divided down into even smaller parts where his head is cut into several pieces. I can't lie, guys. I do think that's very funny. The idea of just like, no, I'm gonna do something sort of similar, but I'm gonna dial it up a notch or two. I like it. And this guy, we have a whole other moment. This was really, it's so weird, y'all. And honestly, it's very true to life. But it doesn't seem like any male character can interact with Nami without either reprimanding her for being immodest or lusting after her. It's just not possible. No matter what, that's going to be a problem for somebody in some way. And that's really genuinely when you're like, I was going to say when you're young and beautiful, but honestly, it can progress even past being young and beautiful. It really is the way the world can be. You are punished for being unattractive or attractive. It doesn't matter because women can't win. That's really just all it comes down to. So the fact that we have yet another character here who, and I do recognize he condemns her for her immodesty, but then he also, when she says, "You like it though, don't you?" admits, "Yes, I do, very much." Are you really, really? And I like the very fact that Sanji has reacted this way himself every single time and gets so angry at this dude. That is also another, like, telling on themselves sort of thing that a lot of guys do. It's just wild. Nami is either here to be like slut celebrated or slut shamed, but either way. Um, so yeah, he eventually comes around to it and is like, "Oh, well, I guess that's what is appropriate in your land." So I approve, and I appreciated that she just follows that up with like, "I don't fucking care if you approve. That is not what this is about at all." And this is when Sanji like kicks him into the wall and his head is just embedded in it. But he's like trying to pretend that he can just stay there, and if they take off without him, it won't bother him because they're pirates and he can't stand pirates, so he's just not willing to team up with them. And understandably, they all are just like, no, yeah, we're not just leaving you here. Like, this isn't a great situation for you either. And he reveals finally that he is here to save his son's life. But we don't really get any further details about that here. Um, so eventually, Frankie is able to bust this door down and they escape this room, and they are not sure where to head. They're just going down the hallway trying to avoid the weird guys in these suits that, what do you call them? Like sort of hazmat suits. And they wind up coming upon a room that is filled with toys, and it becomes clear very quickly that this is some sort of nursery. It's a playroom. And I really liked the way that this reveal is done because the kids are out of like frame of our friends. They're not together, so there's no scale at first. And you just see all of these children and you're just sort of like, that's weird. There's a bunch of kids here. Okay. And then the camera pulls back and you get to see how huge they are in comparison to the Straw Hats. And you're like, wait, what? I was so taken aback. And it turns out, too, not even all of them are this size. Some of them are humongous. Some of them are perfectly normal sized. And it doesn't really seem like there's rhyme or reason that we can understand as to how, why some of them are a certain size and others aren't. And later on, one of the kids is like, it's okay. We're not sick anymore. We're totally better. I promise. And when our friends seem to be leaving these children behind, the kids start yelling out, about this. And then the guards are saying, but you guys are sick and, it's for your own good that you're going to stay here. And we promise nothing is going to happen to you. And the whole, like, the tone of it very much feels like these kids have been full on lied to. But there's also a part of me that is like, well, maybe they weren't sick until they got here, could also be a possibility. Maybe they are kind of sick in this way that's like, been actually caused by whatever is being done to them. Because who knows what the fuck is happening with some of them being huge and others not. This is the kind of thing that you could be just write off as like, oh, some sort of radiation for whatever the chemical problem was, that some of the kids inhaled it and they got huge for some reason. You know what I mean? Like, it could be something just that simple. And even if it is that simple, it kind of would explain why you are feeling like protective of them and being like, no, promise, you really are sick though, So I don't know. I not to say that I actually trust these dudes. I really want to make that part clear, at least. I don't believe that whatever they're being told, these guys are being honest about. I'm just saying that there could be a sort of truth that they're telling like half of in order to cover up their own asses. And I like the fact that there are children as part of this experiment. The fact that this samurai is here to save his son, And I fully thought his kid was going to be in this room and then he isn't. That was very concerning to me because it feels like if you've got enough children in a facility like this, that there's like so many that they're not even contained in one place. How many experiments are you running? Like, what else are you up to? You know what I'm saying? That made me feel like kind of sick. The idea of like possibly more than one room and some of these kids being taken to a separate place. And why would that be? It's possible that his child is simply not even here, that he came to this building and to these people because they were the most obvious explanation where his son is, but that he's wrong and that they're not located in this building. But I feel like if you've got a bunch of children penned up in a room being fed lies about why they're here, I don't really blame you for assuming your kid is also in this place. I feel like that just follows, you know. So anyway, I this the energy of this thing with the children is so truly sad. I was taken kind of by surprise because you guys know how inconsistent it can be with this show in terms of my emotional reaction when clearly the show is trying to get me to feel something, and there are times where I have felt almost obstinately like almost like you're trying too hard, either with um the music being a little bit over the top or just the overall situation feeling almost too ridiculous in how terrible things are, that it's like an Oscar bait type of movie where I'm like, yeah, I get what we're doing here, but also it's very difficult for me to take this fully seriously. And I feel like this struck a really good balance of being just horrifying enough, especially because we don't fully know what's happening here, that that combined with the very innocent quality of these children and how slow they are to ask to be rescued, these kids respond when our friends show up like real children. They're excited to see Frankie, who is a cyborg. They're interested in Sanji's weird eyebrows. Like, there's a lot about this interaction that feels just like they've run into some regular children. And so I think setting them up as kids in that way, and then we transition to them being like, wait, you're leaving without us? Please don't leave us here. It was just, I was given enough time to see them as real people and not just a prop that needs rescuing for the sake of the plot. And I found myself like really upset by it. And the kids just eventually being like, well, okay, if you have to go, but you promise you're going to come back, right? And the fact that they are in such a bad place that they are willing to make that kind of concession, that they're just like, yeah, we get it. You're not going to be able to take us away right now, but we are so desperate that if we have to just wait for you, that's what we'll do. This was like heartbreaking and just really kind of caught me off guard. So, and I really did think as well that the Straw Hats were going to take off and then find a way to rescue the kids and come back. So when the Straw Hats turn around like on the spot and begin to fight for the kids, I was surprised by that as well, because I expected that we were going to do a sort of like go out, regroup with the rest of the crew and find out what's happening on this island in general. And then all of us as a complete crew come back and rescue these children. So I was glad that it's, managed right away, and that my being heartbroken over these kids does not last very long. So we've got Brook, and reminder, is like in this whole other weird sort of limbo because all of his friends that are actually alive got captured and they are in the building. And then Robin, Usopp, Luffy, and Zoro are still on the like fire side of the island. And they are like they're not turning around to get Brook. He is in contact with them via a transponder snail, but he is not like there's a weird separateness with him. And I found it sort of odd because what we wind up doing with him pretty much is he fights the torso part of the samurai. And I'm just sort of here's the thing, guys. And this is just a thing that I think the show struggles with a lot anyway, but he's fighting the torso guy and he seems genuinely like a bit upset and overwhelmed at the situation. Which sure, but he's getting scared of being cut. And all I could think was, I've seen your head get cut off, man, and it did nothing. You just picked it up and you put it back on and there it was and you were fine. So as he's beginning to really panic when dealing with the swordsman, I was like, but why? I don't feel any tension here at all, personally, because I know what you can tolerate. You're going to be fine. You know what I'm saying? And it was just sort of a weird choice, I felt like, to have Brook, of all people. Like, plot-wise, it makes sense why he's still on the ship because of being the only one who isn't alive and therefore immune to this gas, and also them thinking that he isn't immune to the gas, but they just thought he was dead because he is a literal skeleton. But I was confused about the fact that he seems so worried about being cut by the swordsman when I was feeling pretty confident. You don't have any reason to be worried, sir. We know you're going to be just fine. That's just how you roll. But anyway, that's like most of what he deals with in his being apart from the rest of the crew is fighting with this weirdo torso. So, um, yeah, and when Brook is talking to Usopp via the transponder snail, he also mentions that they're in an area now where it's all like ice and snow. So this is when they're just beginning to understand that there are two halves to this and they're on the whole other side. Luffy is still convinced that he's going to be able to do this snow cone thing. I really kind of hope that pans out for him. I hope this whole arc ends with Luffy getting to have a snow cone. Bless him. But anyway, so what I was saying was, thankfully, because Brook remains and wasn't captured, at the very least, he is able to explain to our friends where everybody went. Because there's a witness who can give specific details about it that I really can only imagine if they had all gotten captured and then Luffy and Robin and everybody came back to the ship and just found them fucking gone. Like, what would you think? I don't know what I would think. I'd probably, I guess, assume that they're out on the island exploring somewhere because there's no real evidence pointing to the fact that these people, like, the gas disperses after they leave and there's no blood there, there's nothing that really clearly marks a fight. And the guys have remained almost invisible as far as I can tell, so that there's no hint there's anybody else on this island at all. And I think it would just be really difficult for them to know what to do. And I'm glad at least that somebody was there to see what happened. Um, and explains about the suits that they were wearing and everything else. So then we have Luffy, who is with this sweet, wonderful little what do you call him? Centaur. I call him sweet and wonderful because he just reminds me of Tormund Giantsbane. If I'm being honest, like there's just a real like I can beat the shit out of people and am very badass, but mostly I'm not super interested in doing that and just kind of want to be buds. That's the vibe that I get off of this guy. And so his whole energy, I was very disappointed that it basically gets like shut down when he is told, hey, you know that dude isn't your friend, right? That's some enemy that you need to deal with. And then his whole attitude changes. Luffy is also disappointed because he's just been having a great time. But like for me, I was just like, oh, but I liked seeing this over the top fun dude who is just willing to, all he does is like race with Luffy. He just wants to go and see whose legs are the strongest and the best, which by the way, he beats Luffy in a race. And I was kind of pleasantly surprised because I just sort of assume that anytime Luffy gets into a physical challenge of any kind with anybody, I assume Luffy is going to be the one that comes out on top every time. And so the fact that he doesn't, I was sort of like, oh, nice. Okay. So we've got a whole other, a little bit of a moment here with him being beaten by this dude who's got genuine horse legs, which only makes sense. But so, yeah. And they're about to race again. And he gets the transponder snail call about how Luffy isn't a friend. And poor Luffy, unaware of this, is just looking over his shoulder at this guy like, are you coming? Like, I'm ready. Let's go do this. Let's do our second race. And this dude looks genuinely so disappointed, you know? So Brook, he has gotten to this building and because he's still on the ship, but he can see it. And Robin is like, well, do you see anything? Do you see a building? And he's like, yes, indeed I do. And it's outside of there that he comes across the torso. It's so weird too. He says it's not a restaurant. I know that much. And I was like, who asked you if it was a restaurant? Why did you even bring that up? Weird little moment. So the I'm trying to see, like, because everybody is split up the way they often are, knowing where to jump next is a little bit, because sometimes if I get ahead of myself in one section, then I have to double back on another section. So I'm trying to make sure that I don't miss anything here. Oh my God, I forgot that there's like this giraffe guy as well. And Luffy, he is just sort of delighted by him. I mean, why wouldn't you be? The giraffe, like, that's kind of dope. But of course, everybody else they're trying to kill us, Luffy. This isn't cool. This isn't awesome. And Usopp takes the transponder snail off this guy, and he says it says CC on it. They're not just free roaming magical creatures. They're part of some organization. And we don't know what this is, but Usopp says if we tried to get out of here, the Sunny is gone. It's all the way on the frozen side. So it's not like we can just turn around and head back, and our friends got taken, so we can't just bail from them either. So what are we going to do? And Robin is theorizing like, well, if our friends are passed out, they're not going to be able to defend themselves. So they're in a pretty bad situation. Like, what are we kind of fucked up here. And Luffy says, it's fine. I even got to meet Dr. Leggingston, which is apparently what he's calling his back legs. I thought that was what he was calling the centaur at first. But no, it's what he's calling his second pair of legs. And I hesitate to even call them that because they're not his, but it's fine. And Luffy's like, you guys know, I already wanted to go to the other side. So nothing has changed. We just got to figure out the way that we're going to get across this water. And Zoro, his theory about getting over the water is, well, if there's fire and there's ice in the water, then probably the water is the exact right temperature and we should just swim. Which there is a sort of weird sense in that, but as we see later, it is not that simple because that water is quite literally boiling and would have turned them into a soup. Uh, Meanwhile, inside the building, this weird flame clown is out here investigating how our friends got out of a door that is supposed to be unbreakable. And he can see that this was a laser, that the marks here, like that's clearly what's going on here. Um, some dude comes in and informs them all that there is a marine ship that is coming closer. And the Cesar Clown says, well, don't kill them. We don't want to start drawing attention, but shoot some poison gas out there and they'll really start to get the idea. We need to get rid of them as quickly as possible, which I thought was sort of interesting. The idea that whatever it is that he is up to in here, he doesn't want them knowing about. I guess they're so inside, because remember the response that Smoker and Tashigi had at hearing that perhaps our friends were on, what is this place called? Punk Hazard, right? Their response was essentially, wow, that's weird, because as far as I knew, that whole island was closed off and nobody was even allowed on it. So how is that possible? And my assumption is that the Cesar Clown has I really hate that name. Every time I say it, I feel like I'm being ridiculous, like that this is completely wrong. I don't know what the deal is with this name, guys, but I don't like it. But anyway, he seems to be laying low enough that nobody knows that he is still alive, or that he was alive at all. Because the thing with the chemicals that went wrong was something to do with the oh my god, you guys, I'm trying to remember his name. The one that Frankie found his laboratory. Um, wasn't his name Vegapunk? Is this place called Punk Hazard after him? Is that where the name came from? But I feel like they mentioned his name in conjunction with the chemical thing. And I had said when we first are here and see Caesar Clown for the first time, that my initial assumption was that this was Vegapunk and that something had happened to him with an experiment. And now he is this weird creature. And the way that this is talked about, I'm kind of starting to be like, maybe that's exactly it. Is Caesar Clown Vegapunk? And just has this weird new flame body now and goes by a different name for whatever reason and is supposed to be dead but survived somehow. I don't know how this could be. It's and I don't really feel like I've seen another character on this show change themselves physically and then completely go by a new name exactly. We've had them get given different names by organizations, but I don't feel like we have ever seen them choose a whole new identity. And so that's the thing that I keep sort of falling up against does that make sense for the way that we have seen things works in this universe? I don't know. Um but yeah, so the I just want to call him Flame Guy because that honestly feels less ridiculous than the actual name that he goes by. But anyway, they catch on pretty quickly about the gas, and Tashigi is like, "All right, guys, everybody get gas masks." And they're not taking this as a threat at all. They do, because the theory was put some poison gas out there, they'll get the idea and they'll turn away. But that doesn't work at all. Instantly, It's just put gas masks on, deal with it. And Smoker, for his part, who this dude keeps surprising me by being smart because he's such a like brute. His whole look, he's just so fucking menacing and muscular like a meathead. I keep thinking that he's also a dingaling, and he just isn't really. So his takeaway here is the chemical spill that was supposed to have caused all this poison gas was a long time ago. The amount of gas that is still here does not make any sense. So somebody is doing this. This is not what's left over. This whole thing is very suspect. Um, and I really just like the fact that he keeps being like, the toxic substances were cleared out like 2 years ago. So yeah, and this is when he's like, oh yeah, the island is the mark of their battle. That's why I got so distracted, because I was like, it was Smoker telling the story, and I was fascinated at the fact that he was able to see past the whole poison gas thing. So I just like completely somehow was zeroed in on that. I just think Smoker is probably, I'm interested in seeing who they cast. I feel like I heard that they cast somebody, but I haven't seen them in costume yet. But I feel like Smoker is probably one of the hotter characters on this show. So he also just distracts me because of his pretty face. But yeah, so that is why this island is broken up the way that it is. Right, right, right. Thank you, Seraphim, for your patience, and all my listeners as well. So I love the fact, by the way, guys, just mentioning this because we get it as a subtitle whenever we go into the room with all the children. But the fact that it's called the Biscuit Room, it's adorable. I just look, the word biscuit is just very, very cute. Anyway, I have a friend who has a little corgi dog named Biscuit, and I am sorry, but there is just nothing cuter in the entire world. That is the cutest name that has ever been. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that because I didn't say it last time. There's also something extra creepy about the thing with the kids because the place is so built to be such a pleasant, fun space for children. If this were like a stark white room and a bunch of kids were being kept in here with like, all of them in jumpsuits with this like fluorescent lighting on them and steel furniture, it would have felt a little too heavy handed. But the kids are being allowed to just play like children, and the room is set up to be brightly colored and fun like you would do for an actual preschool or something. And it makes it much, much more unnerving, in my opinion. So I really, the whole thing with the kids, I don't know, man. There is just something so effective about this entire storyline. Um, all right, so I'm jumping ahead a little bit. Okay, here's the part where they're figuring out how to get across the water, and Usopp finally comes through and he says, "Let me see what I can do. Special attack, Green Star." And he grows fan grass, which looks like oars. And then he does Bodhi banana, which I love it. It pops out like it's rolled up, like you would with something that's inflatable, and then like self inflates and drops in the water. And I could not, you guys, I just think this is so funny because it's not like he's like, I don't know if I have a tool that will work. Here, let me try this thing. Do you think this would be appropriate? We're debating how to get across the water, and you literally have something in your arsenal that straight up turns into a boat, my guy. You didn't think this was probably like the part you should be playing? Like 2 seconds ago, Usopp is just like, what are we gonna do? I don't know how we're possibly going to get out of this. And then he's just like, oh, here's my Bodhi banana. And I'm just like, dude, well, why? Like this, that feels sort of like this is the exact situation that you would want to use something like this. Why did it take you this long to draw this conclusion? But anyway, um, and the fan grass, like, it is really, really cool. Robin is like, you've got a lot of seeds. They are really awesome, actually. And Usopp says, yeah, there were a lot of weird plants. And the deeper I went into weird, dangerous areas, the more valuable and useful the plants I stumbled across happened to be. So Luffy's like, let's head that away. And of course, has to sit on this like kind of cross beam on the stern of the boat because he can't just sit with everybody down in the regular part of the boat. It's just not his style. We find out too that the change in temperature from one side of the island to the other has caused this like air pressure change that creates a really intense wind, and this is slowing them down a little bit. So they are still a little bit closer to the shore than they probably should be because of the wind when the centaur comes down and is just like, you can't get away from me, and just chucks a fucking like boulder at them, almost capsizes them. And then when he can't reach them, of course, Luffy is still like trying to invite him to the crew, but he blows on a horn and he says, like he calls for Boss, which is the name that we heard the guy on the transponder snail at the very start of this whole thing saying, like, it's so cold, we need Boss. And when he says this, we see a pair of eyes open, but it's just like a completely black screen and then two bright red eye shapes that open. And we don't actually get to see what Boss looks like in any detail. He is just this like distressing silhouette surrounded by a lot of smaller dudes who also have red eyes in this in the like buried in their silhouettes. And evidently, they are looking for the samurai. And this dude sees Zoro and assumes, understandably, that Zoro is that samurai. Later on, Usopp's like, he's not a samurai, he's just a swordsman. And I was like, I'm not sure that's as compelling an argument as you think it is when you say that. I would sort of be like, yeah, isn't that just what that is? But the dude is like, he seems to be in a position of power over the creatures on this island. So I'm interested in what this dude, like, is there a way that we can team up here somehow, even though he's against the samurai and we sort of are on the samurai's side? Maybe we can work something out and have like a little discussion and get it all straightened out. And, I don't know. So anyway, I'm going to jump back really quick before the end of this episode because this is when the Straw Hats go into the nursery and start to fight the dudes who are in the hazmat suits. We get some of Chopper in his like really compact, stout sort of form, the newer one. I can't remember if there's a name for it, but he is doing like a bunch of ninja shit, which is badass. And Frankie comes in and is doing a bunch of stuff. And Sanji kicks a guy. It's so funny too sometimes the way that Sanji's kicks hit. It's like somebody will just be standing there and then you'll just see them careening into the ceiling, but his leg is drawn so weirdly that you don't connect that it's his leg right away. So there have been a few times where he's kicked somebody and I'm like, wait, what just happened to them? And then you'll see the camera pans over and you'll see that like that shape is his leg connecting to his body and you'll be like, oh, okay. I love the fact that Sanji is like, the fact that Nami is only ever nice to children is like, it only makes her sexier. This is one of the only times that I like the fact that he just the idea that he's into a woman who's kind of like rude and mean to everybody else. This is something about his personality that I kind of understand. I get it. So anyway, he's just smoking, observing this whole thing, and he's like, "All right, Chopper, take Nami and get out of here." And Chopper says, "All right, listen up, ankle biters. Follow the beautiful lady and the kung fu raccoon." Um, so the kids, this is the girl's name is Mocha, I think, the oldest girl. Uh, Sanji has to say, though, I'm not doing any of this for you. I hate you for putting Nami in danger, and because she likes you so much. What a weird comment. This is something that I have heard is a real thing. Men who, their partner has a child, and the dude is jealous of the child, the infant, because it's getting so much attention. So, like, this is clearly a real thing. But y'all, that is weird to me. It just is. So anyway, he is taking care of them, taking up the rear as the rest of the group of kids runs out. And all I could think was like, they better hope that whatever door they leave through, that they're on the warmer side of the island, because these kids are all in like shorts and undershirts. They have practically nothing on. And if they are out in the cold, it is going to go badly for them pretty quickly. Um, Frankie, of course, also stays with Sanji to fight these dudes. So we have them like squaring up, and you guys, there's the last thing we have like in this scene is Brook playing in the snow and singing a little song to himself. And I just really, I know that this is not the content that y'all are necessarily here for, but I really want to read you. So I, y'all know I love Brook. I love the voice actor and the way that he is playing him. I just find him to be a standout always in every episode. His delivery of every line is genuinely so funny. And it's just short lines that aren't really like, they shouldn't be as funny as they are. So I decided to just look up who this voice actor is. And his name is Ian Sinclair. And he has done the voice for a ton of anime. Like, so much. And I was just reading through the titles of some of them, and I could not stop laughing. I'm sure that a lot of this is like a translation thing, but it results in some of the most hilarious titles. So I'm just going to read you some of these because I just thought and it's a small number that I'm reading here because there's so many. But also special mention to Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, because I did cover that, and he was a voice in that. He was Liam. Genuinely don't remember who that even is at this point, but I just wanted to mention that here. So we've got Spice and Wolf 2. Um, Attack on Titan, which I know is a famous one, so I'm going to mention that as well. Nile Dock is apparently who he plays in that. Space Dandy. Amazing. Assassination Classroom. Death Parade. I mean, that's just metal. Soul Eater Not! Exclamation point. I don't know why. I have an exclamation point after unspoiled, so I'm not going to judge. But Soul Eater Not? For how does that work out? Unbreakable Machine Doll. Let's see, where there was a really wild one that was coming up. Oh, I love Cheer Boys, and that one has 2 exclamation points. And you thought there is never a girl online? Question mark. All Out, 2 exclamation points. Keijo, 7 exclamation points. He is on Dragon Ball Super, plays Whis. Gonna mention that. Anything that I sort of recognize the name, I'm going to say it. Let's see, where's the one? Oh yeah, Convenience Store Boyfriends. Love it. Genocidal Organ. For me, That is a real sort of feeling like we've got just two words that we're putting together on a Mad Lib, but I don't know, it sort of works. Um, Black Clover, Pop Team Epic. Uh, the let's see, where's the sorry guys, there One Piece keeps popping up because there's movies as well. So he apparently was voicing either Brook or some other character in the movies. I'm trying to not look past just the titles because I'm afraid I'm going to get a spoiler. Um Wonder Egg Priority, which there is more than one of those on this list. Apparently a series. World Trigger, The Prince of Tennis, which is, I don't know, that sort of got a ring to it. The Slime Diaries, that time I got reincarnated as a slime, which is just chef's kiss amazing. And let's see, the last one that I liked was just called Laid Back Camp. And that was recent. That's a 2024 project. So anyway, guys, I was looking through this and I thought some of these names were so great. And I just had to share them with you because I was giggling to myself. Genocidal Organ is really one that like wedged itself into my head because that is, there's so many questions that brings up. So anyway, sorry for this little sidetrack, but I don't apologize really because it was worth it. But this is when somebody begins to attack Brook. He's in the midst of making a bunch of snowmen with all of these weird little metal parts and using them to make the faces. And it's actually kind of adorable. I was sort of hoping that some weird magic would bring them all to life, but we're not in Frosty the Snowman, unfortunately. So the next episode, it deals a lot with his fight with the torso. And then we have got the marine guys who are trying to get all like across the very treacherous land here. It's interesting too, because since our friends, like, the ship is on the snowy side, but they didn't intend to go over there, we didn't really see all of these glaciers and everything that the Marines are dealing with. We saw all of this lava and, you know, the way that they coped with that with Nami's cloud bridge. And they were able to just basically skip over it all. And so getting to see the defenses of all of the ice, it was just kind of fun to see how different it is coming from this direction. Also, guys, I have to mention the fact that Smoker is over here with a gas mask on, with a pair of cigars jammed into one of the holes in the gas mask. Just truly beautiful stuff. Love this so much. Um, and all of his men are just like, how did you know that there was a river behind all of this? That's so impressive. And he just chucks them all and says, looking at the sea current, you morons, you got to start paying attention. Um, and Smoker says the fact that there was a hidden river is not what's important. In this situation, what really matters is whether the ice blocking it formed naturally or was man-made. And basically, they're like, okay, so maybe somebody was hiding the river on purpose? And I'm like, yeah, guys, come on. Obviously. Like, there's a gas mask. Like, there's gas that shouldn't be here. There's something blocking the entrance to the river, of course. But these dudes are not smart. They keep admiring Tashigi, but also just being incredibly disrespectful to her as well. So I just had to mention that because she is so annoying. Or they are so annoying. She is actually kind of annoying too, but it's not her fault. It's the voice actress. I don't know if she does voices for other characters, but I don't feel like she's very strong in this role. And Tashigi is supposed to be kind of a hard ass, but she doesn't feel very convincing. Like, Nami's voice actor, you know, she does a great job whenever she's being a hard ass and you buy it. But this girl, it just sounds like somebody who is pretty actually like mild mannered, sort of pretending. And at first, that's what I thought Tashiki's deal was. But the more I get to know her, the more I'm like, no, I think she's genuinely a hard ass. I don't think this is her trying to pretend. I think she is this, and it's just the actor that's sort of giving me this impression of her. Um, so anyway, as they're coming in on this river, we go over to our friends who are approaching Boss, and we get to see what this dude looks like. And he is essentially like a cartoon pirate, but just, extremely tall, the way that always the bosses seem to be, unless they're Luffy. And or no, that's Brownbeard. He's not Boss, right? This is a different guy. Is Boss and Brownbeard the same guy? I don't remember if that's actually said. But it's so funny how many people are named like Color Beard. But he is certain that who they've got with them is the samurai, and is saying that like you are clearly spoiling for a fight. Um it's nothing but a pathetic ploy, and he's saying to all of his men, you can't let him get any farther. And there's a centaur woman here who has, like, of course, a very, very similar look to Robin, because everybody, like, most of the women just seem to look identical to each other in this series. And she's wearing this, like, kind of adorable, like, zip up parka that goes over her whole, like, front and rear. And I was just like, wow, I wonder where she got that from. That's actually, like, a really cute look. Um, Jumping back to the Straw Hats that are inside with the children, and Chopper is really out here like, I am gonna do whatever it takes, and his eyes are getting all like flamey, and he is determined as he does a somersault over everybody's heads and just knocks out each of the dudes that is ahead of them, because they're about to, I think, either like gas them or use like water hoses. I'm not sure. I think it was just going to be a gas that they use, like a sleeping gas. Um, but just the fact that we get to see Chopper being a badass, I really enjoy it. Y'all know every time that he gets to show off a little bit like this, it's gratifying because it's rare. And when he's with Nami, he's allowed to be the fighter out of the two of them. So anyway, one of these kids has a head that looks so much like an onion. So very much like an onion. It's reminding me of like one of the kids on Usopp's island that was admiring him way back. Because I feel like he was actually named Onion in Japanese. Um, so we've got more of the fight inside with Sanji, Frankie, and the head of the samurai. But I'm not gonna get too much into that because it's just sort of weird. He's talking about the battle that he is in and how he's never faced a challenge like that. And Frankie's like, "What are you talking about?" And he has to be like, "Oh, sorry, not here. My torso. It's in a different battle." And I was just like, this is some wild stuff that you have to keep track of, guy. Um, we have Tashigi cutting this giant, like, ice island that's been chucked at them. It's a glacier, I guess, but it's like midair. And she is saving her entire crew, going back to Brook and his, fight with the torso. And then we go to Cesar Clown, who is extremely agitated that the Marine ship has managed to get as far inward as it has. Um, the whole point is that they're not supposed to get to like the inside of the island. And he's asking, why do they even want to come ashore so badly? Like, why do they, what brought them here in the first place? And asks who their commanding officer is. And when somebody tells him it's Smoker, he's like, huh, okay, well, I guess that's not a huge surprise. But I don't know what that means. If it's just that Smoker tends to be somebody who's really tenacious, sees through bullshit, I don't know. Um, and he tells them, like, our ships that are out front, you have got to hide and don't let anybody see you because they can't know that there are people here at all. It's supposed to be completely deserted. Um, So then you hear a voice say, "You want me to handle it?" And it was the outline of Trafalgar Law. He is very recognizable. And I was so confused. I didn't know what to make of it. I still don't know what to make of this. So the Marines ship eventually, it hits shore and they get off and they're approaching this door. And all of the men, it's so weird. They're trying to like bash it in, pounding on the door. And eventually Trafalgar just opens it and is like, "Hey, so what are you guys doing here?" And all of the men react as if this is the most terrifying thing they have ever seen. That Trafalgar Law is, and he is like several tiers above Smoker, if I'm not mistaken. So I guess it makes sense, but I also couldn't help but laugh at like Trafalgar Law is supposedly working with you guys most of the time. So, and the the fact that they're on the same team allegedly apparently doesn't count for much because they say something about how, well, you know what he did, right? To become one of the 7 warlords. And we get a flashback of this delivery of bags, and all of the bags are moving. He delivered the hearts of 100 pirates to Navy headquarters. You guys, the hearts are like moving inside the bags. I think it's suggesting their hearts are still beating, which I don't know how that is supposed to work. And there's no blood on the sacks either, which I did think was kind of surprising because the show is not shy about blood, like mostly. Um, but yeah, Smoker is just like, okay, well, what the fuck are you doing here though? Like, there isn't supposed to be anyone on this island. And Trafalgar Law just says, "Oh, isn't there? Well, you're here. So it seems like we are at an impasse." And that is the end of the episode. I don't know what to think of this. And Trafalgar Law, like, I don't know. He's just not somebody who has scared me that much. He's always just so relaxed. And there are characters who are relaxed and then they do some wild shit and you're just like, "Oh, okay, I get it." But Trafalgar Law has been like kind of ducking in and out of the story a lot. And I just don't feel like I've got really a handle on him yet. And him working with this weird smoke monster, I have no idea what his link is to any of this. So, ooh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm seeing Seraphim was commenting in the chat, but I think Boss is Brownbeard. Seraphim said, "Okay, noted." And most likely, yes, Punk Hazard is named after Vegapunk. The asylum was his lab until the indecent 4 years, I think it was supposed to say incident 4 years ago. It says indecent, but, the incident was indecent. And then keeping children locked up is also indecent. So that's perfectly adequate to call it that, I think. Yeah, all right. So we wrapped up. Thank you guys again for bearing with me when I just miss stuff. I'm so sorry. I really try. I really do. I get very embarrassed when I get things so wrong, but it can't be helped. It's gonna happen. When you do as many episodes as I do, it's gonna happen. All right, everybody. Thank you again so much for listening. Thank you to Seraphim for joining me here. Thank you to Florian for commissioning this. And I'll be seeing you soon with a new one. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.